I'll call to order the meeting of the Operations Committee meeting for Friday, March 8th, 11 o'clock at Carnegie Town Hall. Welcome to all of those here at Carnegie and those that are observing on CityLink or at siouxfalls.org. We will begin with a review of the draft procedures manual for the council. And Jim?
Yes. Good morning, Jim David, City Council staff. We'll start looking at the 2013 or the draft 2013 Sioux Falls City Council Procedures Book. The intention of this book is to have this as a guidance for current city councilors, but also a training manual for those that will be elected in the future. The background of this document is that we use the 2010, or the Operations Committee used the 2010 Procedures Manual as a template when beginning the discussions and review of this document, but also used other publications such as the Introduction to Sioux Falls City Council Government, along with other city documents, human resources documents such as the evaluation form, and some others. Similar to past documents, similar to the previous procedures book, we divided it into several chapters, but we did add an additional chapter called Human Resources. The first chapter is Role of the City Council. The Operations Committee kept the role of the council, the mission statement, the goals and priorities, adapted the future meeting dates, but they did add an additional section called the popular acronyms of city government. The various city departments participated in this, planning, community development, public works, but also those quasi-public entities that the city oftentimes deals with, for example, Southeastern Council of Governments. Last week I did add the additional acronyms that were provided in shaped places. The new section is Human Resources. We did include an organizational chart within the manual. In addition, the Operations Committee did adopt the evaluation procedures, the evaluation forms that Human Resources currently uses, along with making some changes to how evaluations are done with council employees. For example, my position is answers to the Operations Committee, so my evaluation will be done with the chair of the Operations Committee and somebody from leadership. We also did include a confidentiality policy for all employees to sign.
Yes,
Madam Chair, can we ask questions as we go?
Yeah, sure. That would be fine.
Do you mind? Because I'm just now running into this because we are into evaluation season, just by the way that our hiring went, and we actually have non-exempt employees. The exempt employee form is the one that Lori and Rich use for their employees, the people that report to them, but the folks that, like Jim and Lori and Dave Bixler, Rich Oaksall, that report to us, there's actually another form, and I just had it emailed to me by Bill O'Toole. He asked me about it this morning, and so it's a little bit different. So can we add that to this as well?
Okay. Sure. This is the non-exempt or the exempt?
No, it'd be the non-exempt.
Okay.
It'd be the one that it's a little different. I've been using this one just because it allows so much space for making comments and whatnot, but there is another form that's used for non-exempt, so I just wonder if we want to add that. Am I making any sense, Rex? You're looking at me like I'm...
Rex?
The thing is how we don't have any non-exempt employees.
These guys all are.
No,
they're
guys,
exempt.
They're exempt.
No, I thought exempt meant hourly.
No.
Oh, non-exempt is hourly.
Non-exempt is hourly.
This, if you look at the explanation that comes with this form, it talks about the supervisory responsibilities of those individuals.
So
The non-exempt employees are the hourly.
Okay.
And that, from the information that Jim forwarded to us from Bill O'Toole, Bill mentioned in that because the hourly employees are civil service, or the non-exempt employees or civil service, that they would have to follow the review form that all city employees utilize.
And Bill did actually send that verbiage that everyone had received an email, and we did add that into the performance evaluations, which is 2-3. Said performance evaluations for the assistant city clerk shall be handled using applicable forms and/or processes as identified by the city's Human Resources Department. Maybe that's the reason for that non-exempt evaluation form being emailed.
Well, because what he sent me, and now I'm not finding it, I apologize, and I don't mean to hold us up, it just, I hadn't lived through this yet, and so now it's a little more real for me, but it is that one that if you recall, in previous years, it has just a basic numbering system in terms of 1, 2, 3, and then that's how you figure the hourly increase. And so that's different than this.
Yeah, and
right?
this is the one that, that you sent out to the
Right.
council, and it is the appropriate one
It is,
for
see, and I thought I was
exempt.
sending something wrong,
No,
so,
you
okay.
did the right thing.
Well,
But it would not, it's up to, I mean, we'll make this proposal to the whole council if we, approve to send this on today. Do we want to include those for non-exempt in the procedures manual too? I think that it probably, even though we won't be doing those as council members, I think it's probably if the supervisors ask for any input from council members before they do the review, it would be helpful to have it in our manual.
right, that's what I'm thinking, that other form is
That's
really
another
very
option.
useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, just to have it there in case council members are asked for input, they can go to their procedures manual and know what kind of,
We got the reference material.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
Maybe, do we need to, if I may, do we need to identify these differently than non-exempt, maybe put after that or whatever, if there is some,
No, I don't think so.
some other distinction on that?
no, it is
Hourly
defined,
and salaried or something like
it
that?
is
I don't
defined
know.
already, I struggled to remember what it means, because this
Well,
is a
if you do,
city-
then some others might too, is my point.
Right, but it's a city terminology.
And
I'm
I think that we will, this is going to be the largest part of discussion at the working session, right?
Right, yes.
And so we can get that type of input.
Maybe
Counselor?
for those people that do fall under the civil service, maybe we can list that in this description somewhere, you know
Sure.
what I mean? Such
we-
as civil service.
Yeah, we, even in, on the organizational chart page on 2-2, we could list exempt and non-exempt on there if that's the preference. The internal auditors are all considered exempt, whereas the assistant city clerks is considered non-exempt. And we could just put it in brackets if that would be,
Probably would be a good idea.
okay.
Madam Chair, if I found the name of this form, it actually is a different form, and it is something that we use in addition to this. It's called the Merit Guidelines Scale for Performance, and it's something that we've used it previously in evaluations in previous years, but we're also using it this year. So it is part of this process, so we do need to have that added
Okay.
to this book.
What's the name of that again, Michelle?
Well, I think it's called the Merit Guideline for Scale of Performance, or he might just call it shorthand an evaluation sheet, but it gives us guidelines to determine. It's basically a point system: 1, 2, 3. 1 is failed to meet expectations, 2 is meets performance expectations, and 3 is exceeds performance expectations. And then there's a formula. We have used it in a group as almost like a score sheet. And then in the end, that final score then determines what the raise is or isn't based on the merit using just that numbering system.
So do we use that also for the exempt employees to determine the raise? I don't,
I don't believe so, no.
okay. So that was not, you did distribute the draft to the council as a whole in preparation for next Wednesday's
Yes.
meeting.
Yep.
So just have those available,
Okay.
Yeah.
be added to,
Yeah.
So
'Cause that was-
don't, I'm
if
sorry,
that's
don't
the
add them,
wishes
or
of the committee.
Do you want to add them to the,
do you want them added to to this document, or just on hand separately?
Well, it'll be part of the discussion. They will probably want to see if that's what this committee is proposing be included.
Well, it's just like we're showing this document, make it part of the whole deal right now. I mean,
Sure.
this is what we're presenting at the working session, and that's one of the forms that we're recommending be added to it. So we'll add it to it
Okay.
now, and it'll just be part of the deal, and then it'll be part of the discussion as we go forward.
Yeah, makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do
Thank
you want to
you.
go forward?
One more
Brett?
thing on this. I'm just looking here, and I caught something I had not seen before, and that is on this performance evaluation form, under the column there, it says AS and NS.
AS
I'm
achieves
sorry, satisfactory, not satisfactory. I'm not sure what those mean, but
right
it
above
says,
that,
see
Counselor?
definition on page 3. We don't have a page 3 to look at.
It's right up on the top there.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Achieves performance standard, does not achieve. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that section
Thank
or
you.
that? Jim?
Okay. All right. The next section is public relations, or the next chapter is public relations. In this, the Operations Committee did borrow heavily from the introduction to City Council governments. We also did add, or actually a part of this is going to be the effective communication tips for counselors. We did add some network and IT information, the help desk for counselors if they need their password reset or things of that nature, and also how to access the city's Insight page, which includes information on the various departments and things of that nature.
And this information came mainly from what had been prepared for the council by HR.
HR, exactly. Yep. There was another idea, if the council or operations committee is interested, that we could add, we do have commonly used acronyms. We could also have a page that has commonly used phone numbers for city government as a reference page for all of you. That's another idea that we could include in this.
I think that's a very good idea.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, we'll add that. The next chapter is city council policies. This includes how a chair and vice chair is elected, how often a seating rotation takes place, the agenda deadlines, and the council's other council committee information, such as this committee and the other 3 committees, how often they meet. It does include basic city budget information, how the capital program is funded, how the operations budget is funded. It includes references to city charter, the basis for some of these dates and things of that nature. We also, the Operations Committee also revised the travel policy, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. The equipment office supplies, we added tablets just because of the change in technology, but did remove printers and dedicated phone lines to council members' house. We also had the parking procedure, which basically just mirrors what the mayor's executive order is.
Any questions or comments?
Okay. The travel policy, it did go through some changes. The committee adopted some verbiage, and I'll actually just read this verbatim. The travel requests for conferences, meetings, and other events must be nonpartisan, non-political, educational, and benefit the City Council and the City of Sioux Falls. Secondly, the council members shall report this key information following their attendance to an out-of-state event or conference during a public meeting, which will probably be the informational meeting, within a reasonable amount of time after returning. And also there was the added requirement that council and staff utilize the Sioux Falls Regional Airport for all their out-of-state travel.
Any questions or comments on that?
Unless, of course, it's to Larchwood to the casino, then probably don't need that airport, but.
All right.
Okay, additional information that was not included with the council, with the handout provided to council or to you, and this is the Chapter 30 of the City Ordinance, Parliamentary Procedure, Open Meeting Law, Executive Session, the Ethics Ordinance, and the City Charter.
So those will be added after the draft is approved.
Exactly, yep. It will be the most recent version of how it appears in ordinance.
Any other questions for Jim?
I just think you've done such a great job. This is amazing.
Right, Jim, I, publicly want to state that the work that you've put into this is exemplary, and
Well, that's, a lot of you have gone
I
through
think
this. and
that the council will truly
fine-tooth comb.
appreciate the work that you've put into this. Is there any other discussion?
Can I just ask a couple more questions? And
You
maybe I was
bet.
losing, because we get to travel policy, which is through 4:18, but then 4:17. Then my pages, I have 4:18, 20, blah, 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 through, that have things like council budget,
It's,
operating budget.
How it's,
These,
how
is
it's
this like an
organized.
appendix kind of thing?
it's
Sorry.
how it's organized, and we can actually change this. I noticed that the chapter concerning city council policies is fairly lengthy. It includes the travel policy, it includes information on the budget, it includes safety, resolutions that deal with how much the council is requesting be in the general fund or be in reserves. We could, if you would like, staff could divide that, separate it out.
Yeah, I just wonder.
In fact, we could include a section just on the budget.
What Jim was asked to do in this draft proposal was anything that is in policy itself and is not in the draft, so that we're not continually
Right.
making copies of it.
Yep.
And so, and then anything in his presentation today, what I had requested that he do is highlight those areas that major changes were made.
Right.
So if there is any other questions on an area that he did not cover, let's have those now. And a reminder that we're just the group that's agreeing to pass this on to the entire
Right.
council.
Madam Chair, if I might, some of those things are kind of important, like dealing with the budget and things like that. So whether or not you create a new chapter, or maybe you can do some sub-chapter listings underneath that city council policies that say travel policy, budget process, you know what I mean, something along that line.
Kind of separates
And then
it.
possibly the page that it's on, so it's easier and a quicker reference for the councilors to refer to, mainly as a reference point, so that we can refer to it a little easier.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah, I
would do
think
it
that's
for
a
me.
great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I just suddenly, and I knew this book, but I suddenly got to this and went, wait a minute, it just kind of threw me for a minute. That would help a lot.
Yeah.
That would- yeah,
You bet.
great, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair.
Counselor?
The safety, 430. My concern is that, this may sound a little different, I guess, maybe would be a little, maybe I'm over-concerned here on the public, making this too public.
Sure.
Is there any concern on any of the rest of, from any of the rest of you on that,
If I could, Madam Chair, this particular page has been public previously. This has
Yes,
been a
ma'am.
public document for a
Okay.
while. But if you read those last two sentences, the critical incident training, that's the piece that you're talking about that really is private. I mean, there are procedures that we are instructed to follow if there were to be a gunman or whatever. That's the part that would never be released to the public in any way.
So,
Councilor
So
Rolfe?
you're basically talking about B, aren't you? Under safety?
well, that would, yeah,
And that has been
Yeah.
in the manual from the get-go.
okay.
Councilor Rolfe, one area that we could change is at the very end. It says critical incident training will be scheduled for all new council members or at the request of current council members.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of as a reminder, a good refresher
Probably,
course.
it might be a good idea.
Yeah,
Because we have done that, too.
yep, we have. Thank you for bringing that up, Rex. Anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to bring it forward to the council as a whole at our working session on Wednesday.
I would so move.
Second, Rolfing.
It has been moved and seconded that we move the drafted Sioux Falls City Council Procedures Manual to the entire council. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Again, Jim, thank you very much, and be prepared to do the same, I guess, Madam Chair.
Yeah, this was very understandable, so I think that's the same drill would be for the work session. So we can just walk folks through it. So, great, thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the town hall use policy. Jim?
I'd like to thank our city clerk, Lori Hogstad, for assisting in this and providing some really great input into how this document was put together. In front of you, you have the current Carnegie Town Hall use policy with some overstrikes and underscores. At the previous discussion with some of you, I believe the intention was to make sure that the use of Carnegie Town Hall is for city use or related activities, such as the League of Women Voters, candidate forum, and things of that nature. So our attempt here was to try to make some changes that reflected that intent, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or go through it paragraph by paragraph.
Do you want to just highlight the major changes for the public?
Sure. What we had done is in the first, maybe just start with the purpose. It states that the city council chambers and the multi-purpose room, which is right adjacent to the council chambers in Carnegie Town Hall, are both available for use by government and associated activities. Previously it said associated groups. The intent of this policy is to make Carnegie Town Hall available as accessible as possible to government and public agencies, city-sponsored meetings and events, and other related community activities, and to safeguard the building, the furnishing, and the equipment. And number 4 in the guidelines, Carnegie Town Hall may be available from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, excluding federal holidays. The reason that Tuesday is not listed is because that is the day that council has several of their meetings. The time 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. That was in the previous document, but that's just to make sure that the city is mindful of its spending wisely and not having to pay staff overtime. Number 5, we just added 4 city-sponsored meetings that are scheduled before 8:30 and 4:30. A city staff member must be assigned to the meeting. And on the next page, we got rid of the entire number 6, which talks about events or groups that reserve the facility for after hours. We also removed number 7, which was a duplication of the previous page. Number 10, the facilities at the Carnegie Town Hall be reserved with a signed copy of the reservation form is returned. Again, what we're doing here is just having this for city government use and not necessarily for outside groups. The city instead of the city reserves the right to determine whether a proposed use of the facility is appropriate, we changed that to the city council reserves the right to determine whether a proposed use of the facility is appropriate. Number 14, organizations. This is from a previous experience here in the council chambers. we added a line here that organizations are prohibited from moving equipment or furniture in council chambers and will be responsible for the cost of repairing the damage. We also removed that rental fee of $100 per day because the uses will be associated with the city government. And we made the contact the city clerk office.
Any questions or comments?
Yes. So
Councilor
in
Alving.
essence, we are not allowing any social group, basically, I guess I'll say, not the use of this building.
Right. If I might, Madam Chair, I think our thought process was that number one, it's full of highly technical equipment that we're very concerned about the safety of that. And then that idea that the overtime issues, we don't have the staff
Right.
to run this as a rental hall. You know, it just really isn't appropriately set up for that, and we don't have the staff to do it, and it just was inappropriate to make it into a rental facility. It just isn't feasible for this group to do that. So I think that was our thinking.
Lori, you had been with the city clerk's office prior to becoming city clerk.
Right.
Can you tell me when initially they started the policy of allowing outside groups?
Well, I'm trying to remember exactly when. I think when we moved the offices in here, which was in 2001, if I'm remembering correctly, that was a thought process to allow events to be in here. And I know that there was one wedding reception because a gentleman actually called me this year and asked if he could hold another wedding reception, and he'd had one here before. And I believe that was about the only event that we had that was what I would call not a city organization or city-sponsored event. And I have received calls from a woman wanted to hold rummage sales here every Saturday, or once a month on Saturdays. And then I had another call from an organization that wanted to hold their quarterly meetings here, and that was on Saturdays. And I believe we had one for an all-day Saturday event that just, you know, we would have had to have someone staff the building at all times.
And we don't put those type of expenses into our budget each year.
No, we do not. We do not budget for overtime for facilitating groups in our building.
And that's great. I just thought it was good to get this on record so that people knew why we're doing this, and that we're just not saying we don't want this stuff. It's just that we don't budget for it, and we don't think it's a good use of our money to
Well,
have to do
staff
that.
time,
Yeah,
yeah,
staff time
since
and things
staff
like
would
that.
have to.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's a beautiful building, and
Right.
we are so appreciative that we get to use it, and we welcome people to come when there are public meetings here. We want people to be in this building, but we just do not have the capability of doing anything else with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that much of the public is aware of how many other committee meetings are held in this
Yeah.
building in the evenings, so. All right, any other questions or comments from the committee?
What does this have to do then? Where do we go with this now?
I'm not
Is it
sure.
just being filed?
Do we need a
Well-
motion to approve it, the changes in it?
Are we do need to
move on.
bring it forward to the rest
Yeah.
of the council? Either at an,
We could include it in the procedures manual. There's no resolution, there's no ordinance that governs, that includes this information or includes this document here, but it's the committee's decision. We could include it within our procedures manual.
I think that would be appropriate, and then that will be a matter for discussion then again at the work session, so that all council members are.
I would like to make a motion that we bring it to the council independent of the procedures manual, but to be included in the procedures manual when it's approved individually. I think it's important enough to be discussed individually.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, then if I might just, do you want it at the work session then, or
We could do it as a work session, or we could,
eventually we have to adopt this officially too, right?
We would adopt this similar to how the charter, or excuse me, the audit charter is adopted through resolution. We just mimic that, basically.
yeah. Go to a work session, then from there on to the full council. Right.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Future meetings, the next item on the agenda, and Counselor Erfenbach, since you were on the task force, I guess, that put together this committee, do you want to give us a little bit of explanation as to what the thought process was on how often these meetings should be held?
Well, Counselor Rolfing was in that group with me as well, so let's, if I could just brainstorm a little bit. I don't have any notes on it. I recall that it's a quarterly, and I'm getting the heads up from Counselor Rolfing, quarterly and then as needed if there were, because this, of course, is the sort of the beginning of the human resources chain in terms of the council. You know, again, our idea was to take more of that responsibility for human resources, especially to take it off the backs of the leadership and spread it more evenly among council. And so there may be times when this group would need to meet in an emergency situation or whatever, but I think the intention was quarterly. And so do you want to set a meeting for summer or
June, maybe?
June-ish sometime?
You know, and another item that came up is that something that was not passed in the resolution was, I think that you had told me at one time that you felt that the intent was that the immediate past chair of the council would become the chair of this group the following year when that individual was no longer chair of the council.
I think that was our intent, but it is not in the specific wording of the resolution. And
so should we just find some way to add it to, or should we just, just say it's, I don't know.
Does it matter, Councilor Rolfing?
It might be something for us to consider as an internal policy of this committee.
Right. Because I think
When we
the
get
big
back to
thing
that.
was that we didn't want it to be leadership to be chair of this committee. Because that's, again, that we're trying to take some of that burden off.
That's right.
And so I think that's kind of was sort of our logical thought. But if it were Councilor Rolfing is the at-large person in the group right now, it could be that person,
Because we will, one thing that we'll have to remember is that when we elect new leadership, we will need to elect that fourth person to this group.
Right.
Because in the resolution that was passed, it is always the past chair of the council and the current leadership that are a member, and then the fourth individual is Rex's position is the elected position.
It is elected, it's not a committee appointment.
No, it's not an appointment, it's an election. You were elected, right, by the council? Yeah.
Right.
So we're going to have to remember that, council staff, when we elect new leadership in May. So if we were to look at quarterly meetings, our next meeting would be in June.
I would suggest that at this point, rather than just kind of guess, we'll do in June and then we'll do that we kind of set more permanent dates. June, whatever, and June 6, 7, 8, September, and then December, and maybe set a fairly permanent time, and then work off of those rather than trying to go forward. Because I've been in committees where we've done that, and then all of a sudden we're meeting 3 times a month or a year, and then all of a sudden it's down to 2, and it doesn't get done, and that's not what our charter is for.
Right, and I think that June, though, is a good time to start it because we'll have had elections of new leadership in May, and so,
Okay.
give that the period of time and call the meeting. We really don't have a Tuesday evening available after an informational, so I would
We would
still
after the
kind
4th,
of.
wouldn't we?
No, because we could have Minnehaha County.
Yeah, and we're trying really hard to give council a week off when we possibly can. I would suggest that because of leadership commitments for Fridays, that we kind of stay in this Friday mode if possible, because leadership is going to have to be down here anyway.
I think that that's a great idea.
You know, and maybe you move it closer to the lunch hour, so if it is someone who needs to come from work or whatever, you know, this time period seems to work really well, and it, again, takes some of that burden off of leadership.
Right, so I think that starting in June and doing it quarterly and having it set on a Friday, the time, I think the 11 o'clock or
I think 11
works
o'clock's
well because of the fact that you don't want to hold leadership too long into. How does the council feel about that?
Sounds good to
I
me.
think that's really,
Okay,
Won't make any difference to me
We've
at
got
that
a-
point.
yeah,
I might not be on it,
yeah.
well,
but I'll be free.
So Lori's looking at the calendar saying it'd be June 7th. Let's do that first Friday, if that's okay, for June
Yeah.
7th, September 6th, December 6th, and then the first Friday in March. Whatever that would be for 2014.
okay.
I'll find out that date.
And this would be something then that, do you want me to report it at the informational
Yes, yeah,
on
it's on the
Tuesday?
agenda.
Okay. And then if the council has any problem with that, they can let us know. All right, is there any other business? Open discussion? Anything else?
I think we need to thank you for the leadership you've given us over this last year, basically, and getting us through this kind of tough time and getting this whole thing off and running. And so I thank you, and I know the other members here, and especially Lori. She'll thank you a lot, too. So thank you for that great leadership that you've given us, Sue.
Well, I appreciate that. If there is no other business, this meeting is adjourned.